when you have a lot of people basically lining up to hand you money, it makes it very easy and comfortable to go out and start your business.
Today, we sit down with Ana Juneja, the powerhouse founder of Ana Law and a standout in the world of intellectual property law. With over a decade of experience, Ana took a bold leap during the pandemic, leaving the traditional, outdated law firm model behind to build her own innovative legal practice. You'll hear how Ana, armed with a science background and a passion for business, has revolutionized the way legal services are delivered, focusing on efficiency, flat fees, and guaranteed results, not endless billing. She shares her journey from law firm associate to entrepreneur, how leveraging social media unexpectedly skyrocketed her business, and why AI is poised to transform the legal world and beyond. Plus, Ana exposes the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make when building a business and offers her wisdom on staying sustainable and scalable in a rapidly changing landscape. Get ready for a candid, eye-opening conversation packed with actionable insights. This episode will have you rethinking what's possible in law, entrepreneurship, and beyond. As always, if you found value from this content, please like and subscribe. All right, Ana Juneja, welcome to Beyond Fulfillment.
Hi, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, we're excited to have you. So, Ana, you are the founder of Ana Law, and that's an IP law firm that you started almost 4 years ago. And then you've been practicing in that field for over a decade now. So, if you can, just talk about how you got started in law and what made you decide to pursue this career.
Sure. So I ended up going into intellectual property law because I had a science background, and pretty much everyone who has a science background gets pushed into this field if they, end up going to law school, because you can only be a patent attorney and sit for the patent bar if you have a science background. So if you are eligible for that because you have a science background, you always kind of get pigeonholed into this field. Now, when I started in the field, though, it's the only field I've ever practiced in. So right when I started working as an attorney, I just really liked it and I was really good at it. So it was just a great fit, even though maybe the choice of which field I was going into was slightly out of my hands. But I started right away working as an intellectual property attorney, and I worked on, those type of matters right away when I started. I've never done any other type of law.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting. So you found the right fit, kind of almost luckily, right? And it all worked out. You started doing very well. And then so like we said, almost 4 years ago, you decided to go out on your own and start on a law. So what made you decide to do that?
So it was a little bit over COVID. So a lot of people were, thinking about, I think I just kind of reevaluated things in my life. I saw different directions things were going. I saw lots of gaps in the market. And I think that the traditional law firm model is extremely outdated and it's a bad business model. And before I'm a lawyer, but I'm primarily not just a lawyer. I would consider myself mostly a business person, actually. And while I still work with the firms actually that I used to work with, I just work now. I have my own book of clients, my own business, and then I also just, contract with them instead of being a full employee. So I basically just was able to like 10x my income while doing much less work because I don't have the bad business model that every law firm has.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting. And that certainly catches people's attention. So 10x your income and do a lot less work. I'm sure every entrepreneur would like to do that. Can you just talk about, expand on that a little bit more? Like what's broken about the traditional attorney business model?
So s- most law firms are just so incredibly inefficient and poorly run that anyone who deviates from that pathway, even a tiny bit, is actually going to make a lot more money. I think that's a very unique aspect of being an attorney. I don't think it's going to apply to any other business. I don't think there's any other business in the world that are like as a whole generally as poorly run as law firms are. So law firms are really incentivized to be extremely bad and inefficient. And because that way they can continue to charge more and more to fix their own problems and to be very slow. This is pretty much every single law firm in this country is run like that. Most, at least. I'll caveat that by saying most. That is the business model, though, is the worse and slower you are, the more money you'll make as a law firm. So I decided not to go that route because that makes no sense. And so I just flipped like, the business model. So I don't do things on hourly basis. Like we do a lot of flat fee work, we do a lot of guaranteed work, so it's more results driven, which is just not the business model of lawyers typically. But it's the business model that a
Okay.
lot of other service providers do. For example, if you're hiring, a 3PL company and they're just simply going to say, we're going to really try. We're going to really try to like pack this and get this to where it needs to go. Let's hope it works. And we'll keep charging you for our attempts. I mean, you wouldn't really pay for that. You know what I mean? So, but that's what people do with lawyers.
That's interesting. Yeah, and that's a great analogy because yeah, certainly that wouldn't work. I mean, our business is very results driven and it's you're only as good as your last day really. I mean, stuff has to continue to move constantly. So and I'm sure many entrepreneurs can relate to going through fee or legal bills and seeing the fees and disputing them or just wondering why it's so much. So, I mean, when you were in there and you saw this, I mean, how did you just come up with it and say, you know what, if I just had my own firm and I charged differently and I flipped the model and I focused on results rather than just, perpetual billing, that you could actually create a much more sustainable business?
Yeah, I mean, I think the old law firm model is a very sustainable business because it's a very gate kept industry. Like anybody can go out and start, a candle shop, but not everybody can go out and be a lawyer. So I think in that sense, no matter what, depending on what type of profession you're in, if there's a high barrier to entry, you're going to be in a somewhat sustainable business model. Arguably not in the age of AI, but thus far, law firms are a sustainable business model. I don't think my business model is any more sustainable. It is just more scalable. And it is much better for the client. But I don't think it's I think sustainable is a weird term when you think of that. But it's never going to be possible for someone in that type of business model where you're exchanging your time for money and you're not ever results based to ever scale that business model. Versus in my business model, I can do really high volume work with very low staff at very good rates for people that are guaranteed, transparent, all those things. And that way, once you do it that way, when I'm forced to get results versus just bill and bill and bill, I'm forced to have like a very specific system and methods of how I do things in order to get those results. Therefore, it becomes a repeatable process, which, is like my, I guess, trade secret of how I do my things that I do. So I guess that's kind of how I look at it in terms of sustainability versus scalability.
Okay. All right. And so you had a science background and you went into law school. Where did you get this acumen for business?
I think I'm just really interested in business. It's really fun. I come from a family, my whole family is immigrants. My whole family is entrepreneurs. Both my parents are doctors. All my aunts and uncles are doctors. I have, uncles who own lots of factories and things in other countries. And I just saw like no one in my family is really like employable, I feel. So I've learned a lot just through that, like being around multi-millionaire business owners your whole life. You just learn a lot about the business world and you make a lot of connections in the business world. And I feel really lucky that that is kind of the position I was into. As an IP attorney as well, for the last almost decade that I've been working with my clients, I have learned a lot from them too, because I'm working with nobody's going to an intellectual property attorney unless you have a successful business yourself, because you won't have any, you're not launching anything, you're not creating anything, you're not innovating if you're not successful. So I'm only ever interacting in this extremely high level of successful people. Like I'm in a very weird bubble that not very many people get privileged to be in.
Interesting. Okay. And so when you started on a law, I mean, what was it like making the jump to go out on your own after being, employed by a traditional law firm?
So I kind of went out on my own after I had a lot of success on social media. So I had a lot of income guaranteed immediately, which is extremely rare for a business owner. I think it's one of the most important and vital and difficult things most business owners face, which was not what I had to face. When you have a lot of people basically lining up to hand you money, it makes it very easy and comfortable to go out and start your business.
Feeling lost in the noise of social media? Inspo cuts through the clutter, connecting you directly with real insights from real experts and industry leaders. It's a new social network dedicated to knowledge sharing, industry insights, and thought leadership. Get the latest from top minds in your field, or build your own thought leadership portfolio on Inspo. Already trusted by thousands of professionals worldwide, be part of the conversation and download Inspo Experts today on the App Store or visit www.inspo.expert.
So I feel really lucky that that happened to me. I don't think like the stars will ever align like that for most people, or if maybe even for me again. But I also didn't, I also had what I needed to back it up. I had the expertise in my field. It's not like I was so young, like going out right away. I had, built an audience. I had been providing value to an audience for a while, nurturing them. And I knew a lot about marketing. I knew a lot about branding, maybe just from the nature of the kind of law I practice, but I didn't. And then, I was also well versed just by being an attorney in how to delegate and how to project manage, and a lot of skills that if you're a good lawyer who does high volume work, like I always had, then you develop some of those skills. So I had a lot of really easy and good things going for me to do that. So it was a very comfortable kind of jump. I basically just, went to who I was working with before and said, hey, I'm no longer working here. Still worked here and there with projects on firms and still working with a lot of them today that I had worked with before, but was able to do things my way and just take on all the business that was coming to me.
Okay. And so traditionally, too, at least from what I see, we don't see a large amount of lawyers, attorneys doing a lot of social media stuff. So, I mean, what was it that made you take that route to help expand your business?
Um, I think I'm just a millennial. I did not really start my social media in order to start a business. I just kind of was by nature of maybe like my age and my age group and demographic, we were all like just posting on TikTok and stuff over COVID, and I posted a lot of things that I wish I didn't post now, that since it got so much traction, and there's a lot to be said there of how careful you should be online and things like that. But a lot of my content did really resonate with people who needed my services too. I really wasn't planning on anything. It was kind of all an accident. And it's kind of just like when that happens to you, if that ever happens to you, like when life gives you lemons, like do something with it. That's kind of just what I did is I saw that, okay, I'm having like all this traffic and randomly like going viral on social media, and I never knew anyone was going to see my videos at all, and now they are, and people are asking for my help, so I'm going to like figure out and I had to retroactively get my everything organized and move forward with having a business.
Wow. Okay. All right. And so since you've been in business with Ana Law, like you said, you had the expertise, you had a book of business, you had potential clients, you had the social media success, everything came together at the right time. Let's talk about what you do there at Ana Law. So you primarily focus on IP and then working with like entrepreneurs and business owners?
Yeah, so we work with all types of people, influencers, creators, SMEs, corporate, um, pretty much anyone, but we do only a few things, so just patents, trademarks, copyrights. I feel like with a lot of service providers, you're going to fall into two categories. You're going to be either like a service provider that does everything for one type of clientele. Like, for example, family attorneys do everything for families. They do divorces, they do custody things, they do everything for families and children and couples and things. And then like me, I am an intellectual property attorney. So I do only one specific thing, like just IP work, but for anybody. So it's more of like niche down into the subject matter itself. But we work with a variety of clientele.
Okay. All right. And so within the IP, like you're clearly working with a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs and whatnot. Why, what are some of the common mistakes that you come across these business owners making?
I think the most common mistake, especially with startups and small businesses that I see happen, especially lately, is right now we're in a day and age where the barrier of entry of starting a business is very low. So anybody can go out there and throw up a website and start providing services or selling products. And I always think of it though as starting a business is a luxury. The legal and financial aspects that go along with that are not a luxury, they're a requirement. And a lot of business owners just simply fail to have a business plan. That's probably the biggest failure. If you don't have a business plan, if you don't have a financial business plan, if you don't know how your business is going to make money and you haven't reverse engineered that and done the market research and you just don't make money, you don't have a business, you have a very expensive hobby that you are going to be disappointed by. So that's the number one mistake. I feel like such an obvious one, but I have to say it. I don't feel like there's enough said about that, is that you're as a business owner, it is extremely irresponsible if you start a business without making, without even thinking about how you're going to make money. And what having it be very well planned and well thought out. And then I think on the legal side, small business owners, startups, they tend to just totally neglect a lot of the legal things. They get into business deals with their friends with no contracts. They mismanage, their routine filings. They forget to renew their LLC. They don't register their IP right away. And then they're retroactively, having to deal with things. Anytime you do anything in business and with the legal world, it is going to be much more expensive to deal with mistakes after they've happened. Just like, if you get cancer because you smoked cigarettes every day, it's very expensive to deal with that. But if you decide not to smoke and to exercise and be healthy, you're going to prevent a lot of things. But, not everyone does those things. So it's kind of like, just like in real life, there's no shortcuts. In business, there's also no shortcuts. If you start a business without an LLC, you don't have a trademark for your name or your best-selling products and things like that, or you don't file copyrights on maybe photos you take for your new collection, or you just don't have the proper disclaimers and privacy policy and whatnot on your website. So if you fail to do even the business basics legal 101, then you are going to potentially get into some legal problem in the future that's very expensive to deal with on the back end.
Mm. All right. And so you said that, like you mentioned, the number one thing you see is people failing to even create a business plan or figure out how their business to make money is going to make money. I mean, which sounds crazy. But I mean, how often percentage wise do you come across that issue?
I don't come across that issue because if a business isn't making money, they're not investing back into their business enough to be innovating. So they're not hiring an IP attorney to protect their, innovation and their brand and their launches and their new stuff. So I don't see it too much with my clients. My clients are all, by definition, you have to be pretty successful if you have things that you're creating in your business and launching and growing. That's why the only reason they would come to me. So my clients don't really have that problem, but I would say, just based on the stats from like the Small Business Association and things, 90% of businesses fail in like the first couple of years, mostly due to not making money. So I think there's like entrepreneurship and starting a business. Again, the barrier of entry has gone really low for those things. And that's great because more ideas are going to come to market. But it also means that there's a lot of junk being put out there. So, not everybody who wakes up one day and wants to, start a Shopify store really should. If you haven't thought about it, if you haven't thought about that. It's not just something you should do on a whim, and people kind of treat it that way now.
And I agree, right? Like it's the barrier to entry is lower than ever, and you see so much on social media, and there's a whole industry around, creating content and selling products for people to do that. So, I mean, how, I guess, where do you see that going? Because it seems like this seems like that trend's only going to continue given kind of where we are as far as the market and social media and whatnot.
So I think social media is amazing because for the first time ever, a regular person like you or me could, with zero money, go out and post content and get millions of views, tons of clients, make millions without having to have $1 million upfront cash to start. I mean, I started posting TikTok videos, that's free, takes 5 minutes. I was posting like literally 5 videos a day, would get hundreds of thousands of views, sometimes millions, like on these videos that were zero production, cost me nothing. I filmed on my iPhone. I mean, that is like an incredible thing. I didn't need to have ad spend. I did not need to hire an agency. I did not need to hire a commercial film crew. I didn't have to hire actors, models. I didn't have to have a website. I didn't have to have anything. And I was able to make money and start a business from making content and connecting with people and telling them about my services and then getting my services, like very, it's a great organic exchange if you do social media well. However, it's, it can be oversaturated, and there's a lot of cons to that too. A lot of people have a platform who maybe shouldn't, or a lot of people, think that it's going to be really easy to make money when they don't understand that social media itself is also a skill. It's not the hardest skill, but it is still a skill. Marketing is a skill in business you need. And I think in today's day and age, though, more than anything else, AI will be the great equalizer. I think social media was the great equalizer of the last 5 years to 10 years, like the last decade-ish. AI is going to be the great equalizer now for business owners. So business owners, people who have great ideas and people who want to bring something to life are going to be able to do so more now than ever. But there will be a lot of trash that gets put out too. And people are going to be really disappointed when they put out trash and they think it's great and it fails. So it's the same thing. It's the same cycle.
Okay. All right. And yeah, since you brought up AI, let's just talk. I mean, how do you see that? Like you said, it's going to be the great equalizer. I mean, how do you see that even within your industry, within the legal industry? How do you see AI disrupting that in the coming years?
I think the legal industry is going to be one of the last industries to be disrupted because lawyers are extremely resistant to technology. I mean, there's still lawyers that like have their secretary print out their emails and bring it to them. Okay. So we're not, lawyers are not who anybody should look to when it comes to looking at AI. I think for me personally, AI basically like jumped timelines for me. I, as someone who's, you know, at my age and experience level, would typically be in the office grinding like 60 hours a week to make about a fourth of what I make. So, and I, a few years ago, invested into AI, I invested into tech, I invested money and time into learning it and buying certain software. This was way pre-Chat GPT, before it was cool to be into AI. I had decided to implement that into my business. And therefore, I immediately scaled to making like millions within 6 months. Like I made my first million in I think 4 months. So, you can, in any industry, but especially if your industry is behind like the legal field, I think you can use AI right now today to jump timelines. So I've like micro retired because of AI. Even now today, I do the same volume of work as like 10 attorneys at a traditional law firm would do. And I only work a few hours a day because I know how to best use technology and other people, on my team to produce great results oriented work product without the junk that a lot of lawyers, or other service providers not using tech do.
Wow. And so because right, we all remember when GPT kind of burst on the scene and became a household name a couple of years back. But even prior to that, you were tapped into AI and you found ways to implement in your business. What made you see this trend coming and act on it so quick?
Um, it just didn't make sense to do things the old way. And I saw that every step of the way. I mean, there used to be a point in time where people would have to, in order to get a contract signed, that you would have to print out pieces of paper, right? And either have your client come in or mail them. So that means your secretary would be scheduling or getting somebody in or mailing documents out. They sign them, they mail them back, you sort the paperwork. I mean, there was a time and place when people used to do that. Now what do? We like write things on our phone and send them on, the Dropbox app and get them signed like in 2 seconds, like one click. So, I mean, technology and replacing certain tasks that you do with technology is nothing new to lawyers, nothing new to any human being if you're living on earth right now. There were lots of tasks, before that we were doing that technology's replaced. Nobody schedules meetings anymore because we have Calendly and you don't have to deal with back and forth. So there's so many little things that have already replaced so many tasks that we do. And while that's not Chat GPT, you can think of it as the same way. I mean, I used to have like a 9-person media team, and now I have a 3-person media team. And like they're using AI to do all like editing all my videos, putting in captions, transcribing them, having, different AI platforms like ChatGPT rewrite stuff for different platforms because you have to write things in a different tone, for LinkedIn versus Substack and things like that. So, you can, when you use AI, I mean, you're just be able to do so much in such little time, so much faster. So it's just using it intelligently in every single aspect. Like I always am thinking every single day, like how can I use AI more for this or that? And I think the business owners today who do that are gonna just really always do well. I've been doing this for years. I think every little task that you do, you should think, is there any way either someone else or something else could do this for me? And that's kind of what I did from day one.
Okay. All right. And given the success you've had, and like you said, you're basically micro retired right now, and you're not working very much. What's next for you?
I have a lot of stuff that's next for me, mostly because I've been experimenting a lot with vibe coding and launching some like next gen, service provider platforms basically. So I have a lot that's next. I think I feel very like when I do my legal work and my job as an attorney, I feel like it's just all BS. Like we're living in an incredible age and time where we have this revolutionary technology. And I have a lot, in terms of what I'm developing with that coming up, but it's not going to be any, I think I don't want to say I've like maxed out on my legal career, but I feel like I've maxed out on my legal career. And so, because I don't want to say that because I know I'm relatively young to be saying that, but I think I'm looking to, move more into developing, different softwares and things and using AI in different ways that will help people with, their businesses and other lawyers as well.
Okay. Well, and like you said earlier, you don't see yourself as an attorney, you see yourself more as an entrepreneur. So that sounds like the entrepreneurial way. All right. So Anna, if people are seeing this and they want to get in touch with you, whether if they need IP help or they want to reach out to you for any other reason, what's the best way people can reach out to you online?
I am on all social media just as my name at Ana Juneja, AnaJuneja. So I'm really easy to find there.
Okay. All right. So we'll link all that in the show notes for everyone. All right. Well, Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and sharing all this valuable wisdom from your journey with our audience. We greatly appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. So